ladies and gentlemen. Imagine standing at the edge of your life, looking back not with pride, but with a haunting ache, wondering what if you had broken free from the invisible chains of those tiny daily decisions that slowly carved your downfall. You see, it's not the catastrophic events that bury us, it's the small, silent habits, the ones we laugh off with a shrug, the ones that whisper, "It's fine just this once," until once becomes always. But let me ask you this, how many just one more scrolls, just one more lies, or tomorrows do you think you really have? Today I'm going to walk you through 7 of these deceptively deadly patterns, and as we unravel each one, you'll begin to feel the quiet terror of how close they might be living under your skin, and maybe, just maybe, you'll recognize the one that's already costing you everything you didn't even know you were losing. Buckle up, it's not a lecture, it's a confrontation. And hey, if you think you don't need this, you probably need it more than anyone else. Procrastination is often disguised as comfort. It wears the mask of harmless delay, promising that tomorrow will be a better time to start, to act, to change. But beneath its calm surface lies a silent thief, one that doesn't take from you all at once, but rather chip by chip, moment by moment, until one day you wake up and realize the dreams you once held with fire are now just faint echoes in the distance. It doesn't feel dangerous in the moment. That's the trap. The real damage of procrastination isn't in the act of postponing itself, but in the slow erosion of belief in oneself. Every time you push something important to later, you subconsciously tell yourself that your goals don't matter enough, that your discipline isn't strong enough, that you're not ready. And with repetition, that message becomes part of your identity. It begins subtly. Maybe it's a project you care about, a book you've always wanted to write, a business idea you've kept tucked away, a fitness goal you swore you'd chase after the new year. But instead of beginning, you scroll, you watch, you overthink. You wait for the perfect moment, the perfect mood, the perfect plan. Days pass, then weeks, then months. The initial energy you had, that spark of excitement, starts to fade. The longer you delay, the heavier the weight becomes, until the very thing you once longed to do now feels like a burden you can't carry. Procrastination breeds resistance, and resistance, left unchecked, breeds regret. There is a certain illusion that time is abundant, that tomorrow is guaranteed. We cling to the idea that we're just waiting for the right motivation, the right environment, the right time in life. But motivation doesn't strike like lightning. It's born from action, and procrastination kills momentum before it ever begins. It traps people in the cycle of dreaming without doing, of wishing without working. You can see it in people's eyes, the quiet sadness when they talk about what they could have done, should have done, meant to do. That sadness is often not about missed opportunity, but missed courage. One of the cruelest things about procrastination is how well it justifies itself. You're not lazy, you're just thinking it through. You're not avoiding, you're planning to start soon. But deep down, you know when it's not planning, it's fear. Fear of failure, fear of not being good enough, fear of judgment. Procrastination offers temporary relief from that fear, but the cost is far greater. It's your potential that pays the price. You trade discomfort now for dissatisfaction later. The task you delay today may be the turning point of your life. The conversation you avoid might be the one that changes everything. The risk you postpone may be the door to the version of you you're meant to become. There are people walking this earth right now, living lives they never wanted, working jobs that drain them, staying in relationships that break them, because they once told themselves they'd make a change later. Later became never, and never became normal. The weight of regret doesn't hit all at once, it creeps in. It shows up in the silence between what you say and what you do. It shows up when you see someone doing what you love and feel jealousy instead of joy. It shows up when you look in the mirror and realize you don't respect the person who keeps breaking promises to themselves. Not because you failed, but because you never tried. Time has a way of humbling us. It doesn't wait, it doesn't slow down, and it doesn't give back what we waste. Every day you procrastinate is a day you drift further from your goals, not just in time, but in belief. The dream doesn't stay still while you wait. It fades. The edge of excitement dulls. The idea becomes blurry. And one day, it's not even a dream anymore. It's just a memory of something you once felt passionate about. That's what procrastination does. It kills dreams not by crushing them, but by starving them slowly. And while failure at least teaches you something, gives you growth, sharpens your resolve, procrastination gives you nothing but silence. No scars, no stories, no lessons, just the quiet pain of knowing you never gave yourself the chance to begin. You could have built something. You could have learned. You could have failed and come back stronger. But procrastination took that from you. It took your energy, your focus, your time, and gave you excuses in return. Some people spend their whole lives chasing distractions just to avoid facing the discomfort of beginning. They become masters of avoidance, professionals at being busy with things that don't matter, while the things that do matter sit on the shelf gathering dust. The truth is, you don't run out of dreams. You run out of time. And the world is filled with talent that never saw the light of day, not because it wasn't good enough, but because it waited too long. There are songs unwritten, businesses unstarted, lives untransformed, not because people didn't care, but because they convinced themselves that they had more time. They let fear dress up as logic. They let hesitation disguise itself as patience, and in doing so, they let their dreams wither into regret. In youth, the body often feels invincible. Energy seems endless, recovery is swift, and the idea of illness or limitation feels distant, like something reserved for another version of life far down the road. It's easy to treat health as an afterthought when you're young because the consequences don't arrive right away. You skip meals, stay up too late, rely on junk food and caffeine, ignore stress, and laugh off small warning signs because nothing seems to break. But the truth is, every decision you make about your body in your youth is like writing a check your future self has to cash. And the body never forgets. What feels harmless today becomes a pattern. And those patterns over time become the blueprint for your well-being or your suffering. It's not about one unhealthy meal or one missed workout. It's about the slow, consistent neglect. The nights you chose screens over sleep, the months you ignored movement, the years you avoided checkups, the stress you swallowed instead of managing, all of it adds up. And the cruel irony is that when you're young, you're building the foundation of your health. But because the consequences aren't immediate, you rarely feel the urgency. Then one day, the body starts speaking louder. You notice the fatigue that doesn't go away, the weight that doesn't move, the pain that wasn't there before. You realize you're not bouncing back like you used to. And suddenly, the things you took for granted, clear skin, easy breathing, pain-free movement, restful sleep, become distant memories. There's a tragic disconnect between the way people treat their health in their 20s and 30s and the price they pay in their 40s and beyond. The habits you form during your prime years don't just affect how you look, they shape how you age. They determine the quality of your life later. And the regret that comes with neglecting your health isn't just physical, it's emotional. It's the regret of watching others your age thrive while you struggle. It's the frustration of knowing you had the time, the knowledge, and the opportunity but didn't act. It's the bitterness of realizing that prevention would have been easier than treatment, and yet you chose convenience over care. It's easy to glamorize productivity and hustle when you're young. Sleep is sacrificed in the name of success. Fast food becomes a reward for surviving another stressful day. Exercise feels optional, something you'll get back to when life slows down. But life rarely slows down, it only shifts, and without a solid baseline of health, every shift becomes harder. When your body becomes a burden instead of an asset, everything else suffers: your energy, your mindset, your relationships, your ambition. And what many people don't understand until it's too late is that health is not just about avoiding illness, it's about maximizing life. It's about having the stamina to play with your kids, the clarity to pursue your goals, the strength to carry your responsibilities, and the peace of mind to enjoy your time. The idea that you can fix everything later is a lie many people tell themselves to avoid the discomfort of change. But health doesn't wait. It's not a light switch you can flick on whenever you're ready. It's a garden that needs constant care, and the weeds of neglect grow fast. People spend years building careers, chasing wealth, and accumulating things only to later spend all that money trying to fix what they ignored in their bodies. The truth is, you can't buy back time. You can't pay your way out of chronic illness, and you can't undo years of damage with a few months of effort. The body keeps score. It remembers the sacrifices you forced it to make and the respect you didn't give it. There's a moment that hits some people hard, a moment when they walk into a doctor's office and hear news they weren't ready for. A test result, a diagnosis, a warning, and suddenly everything else feels secondary. The meetings, the deadlines, the plans, they all shrink in importance compared to the one thought that takes over: why didn't I take better care of myself? That moment is not filled with panic alone, it's filled with sorrow. Not just fear for what's ahead, but grief for what's been lost. The missed chances to build strength, the ignored signs that could have been addressed early, the years spent underestimating the quiet power of daily health choices. It's not just about diseases or physical decline, it's about quality of life. It's about waking up in the morning with energy instead of exhaustion. It's about being able to climb stairs without pain, to sleep without medication, to eat without discomfort, to move without limits. These things don't matter much when you have them, but they matter more than anything when you don't. The pain of regret always outweighs the pain of discipline. And yet so many people choose temporary comfort, thinking they're saving time or effort, when really they're borrowing pain from the future. Health is not a guarantee, it's a privilege, and like all privileges, it can be lost. No one thinks they'll be the one who breaks down early. No one plans for joint replacements in their 50s or chronic fatigue in their 30s or heart medication before retirement. But it happens, and often it happens to those who thought they had time to change. The scary part is not just the damage itself, but how quietly it builds. Years of stress become blood pressure problems. Years of poor eating turn into insulin resistance. Years of skipping movement lead to stiffness, injury, and loss of mobility. And once it begins, the climb back is steeper than most imagine. Toxic relationships rarely begin with poison. They often start with charm, warmth, and a sense of connection that feels deep and exciting. In the beginning, you may feel seen, valued, even chosen. But slowly, the colors shift. The warmth turns into manipulation, the closeness into control, and the connection into confusion. Toxic relationships don't always scream with violence or rage. Sometimes they whisper with subtle put-downs, constant criticism, or cold silences that make you question your worth. It's not just the presence of negativity that damages you, it's how it makes you doubt your own reality, your judgment, and your ability to be loved in a healthy way. The destruction doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow unraveling of who you thought you were, replaced with a version of yourself that constantly seeks approval, tiptoes around conflict, and sacrifices identity to maintain peace. One of the most dangerous things about a toxic relationship is how well it can hide behind justification. You start making excuses for the way they treat you. Maybe they're just stressed. Maybe it's your fault for saying the wrong thing. Maybe you're overthinking. That inner dialogue becomes a trap because the more you justify their behavior, the more you erode your own boundaries. Over time, you begin to accept treatment that once would have been unthinkable. You silence your needs to avoid conflict. You downplay your hurt to keep the peace. You start believing that maybe you are too sensitive, too emotional, too much. This isn't love. It's emotional erosion disguised as connection. The cost of staying in a toxic relationship is rarely just about hurt feelings or lost time. It's about what it takes from you. Your confidence, your voice, your sense of what's normal. Toxic people have a way of turning the mirror on you, making you believe you're the problem. They gaslight your experiences, rewrite events, twist your words until you don't even trust your own memory. And the more you start to question yourself, the more dependent you become on their version of reality. It's a slow psychological grip that's difficult to see until you're already in it. You stop speaking up. You stop asking for what you deserve. You start shrinking to fit into their comfort zone while abandoning your own. Many people stay in toxic relationships not because they're weak, but because they've been conditioned to believe this is the best they can get. The erosion of self-worth is so gradual that by the time they realize something is deeply wrong, they no longer feel strong enough to leave. There's shame in admitting you've allowed someone to hurt you for so long. There's fear that you won't find better. And there's heartbreak in walking away from someone you once loved, even if that love was laced with harm. Toxic relationships often operate in cycles: highs that feel euphoric followed by crushing lows. That cycle creates emotional addiction. You chase the good moments, hoping they'll come back and stay, while ignoring the red flags waving right in front of you. These relationships can come in many forms: romantic partners, friendships, family members, even coworkers. The common thread is the way they make you feel smaller, less secure, less valued. A toxic relationship thrives on imbalance. One person dominates, controls, belittles, or uses guilt as currency, while the other adapts, absorbs, and slowly forgets what it feels like to be treated with respect. Over time, you begin to confuse intensity with intimacy, drama with passion, and control with care. But love should never require you to abandon yourself. It should never demand your silence, your submission, or your suffering. Self-worth is not built in isolation, it's shaped by the people we allow into our lives. When you surround yourself with toxicity, even if it's disguised as love or loyalty, you begin to see yourself through their distorted lens. You measure your value by how well you keep the peace or how much you can tolerate. You begin to believe that your needs are too much, your voice too loud, your dreams too inconvenient, and slowly you stop asking for more. That's how toxicity wins, not by breaking you all at once, but by convincing you that you're not worth more to begin with. The hardest part is often the decision to walk away, because even when you know something is wrong, the fear of being alone, of starting over, of facing judgment can keep you stuck. Toxic relationships often come with emotional dependency. You might feel like you've invested too much time, too much emotion, too much of yourself to just let go. But staying in something that's killing your spirit just because you're afraid to leave is not loyalty, it's self-abandonment. The longer you stay, the more your identity fuses with the dysfunction, and eventually you forget who you were before the chaos became normal. Healing from a toxic relationship takes time, but it begins with a moment of clarity, the realization that love is not supposed to hurt like this, that you are not meant to feel afraid, confused, or invisible in a connection that's supposed to nourish you. It begins when you decide that your peace is more valuable than their validation, that your self-respect is more important than their approval. And once that seed is planted, the process of reclaiming yourself can begin. You start setting boundaries, not as punishment, but as protection. You start speaking your truth, not to provoke, but to reclaim your voice. You start choosing yourself, not out of selfishness, but out of survival. The scars of toxic relationships run deep, not because of what was done to you, but because of what you had to do to survive it. You learn to doubt yourself, to question your worth, to carry someone else's pain as your own. But those scars can also become your strength. They can remind you of the courage it took to leave, the resilience it took to heal, and the power you found in your own silence. Because once you see the truth, truly see it, you can never unsee it. And from that moment on, you begin to rise, not just from the relationship, but from every piece of yourself you once had to bury to keep it alive. There is a quiet kind of emptiness that follows a life lived without purpose. It doesn't always announce itself loudly or in sudden moments of crisis. More often, it shows up in the monotony of everyday life, the repeated routines that no longer spark joy, the achievements that feel hollow, the days that blur together without meaning. People often confuse being busy with being fulfilled. But you can fill your schedule from morning to night and still feel deeply disconnected from yourself. Purpose is not about having all the answers or chasing grand goals for recognition. It's about feeling that what you do, who you are, and how you live matters. Without that grounding force, even the most successful lives can feel strangely weightless, as if you're moving through the world without ever truly touching it. A life without purpose can feel like a story without a plot. Events happen, time passes, but there's no deeper thread that ties it all together. You wake up, go through the motions, accomplish tasks, maybe even reach milestones, but something always feels missing. That missing piece isn't something external. It's not another job, another relationship, another possession. It's the internal compass that gives direction to everything else. It's the reason behind the action, the why behind the choices. When people don't know their why, they drift. And drifting is deceptively dangerous. It feels peaceful at first, like floating, but over time it becomes disorienting, and then it becomes exhausting, because the human soul was never meant to be idle or aimless. It was meant to strive, to create, to impact, to love with intention. The absence of purpose doesn't always lead to visible failure. In fact, some of the most purpose-starved individuals are the ones who look the most put together on the outside. They have jobs, families, social lives, but underneath there's a sense of numbness, a longing for something more. That longing is often silenced by distractions, entertainment, consumption, performance, anything to avoid sitting in the discomfort of the question, what am I really here for? But that question, though uncomfortable, is essential. It is the gateway to truth, to clarity, to real fulfillment. Because until you face it, you're building a life on a foundation of sand, hoping that the structure will satisfy you even if the ground beneath it is hollow. When you live without purpose, even pleasure starts to lose its taste. The highs become shorter, the lows feel heavier, and you begin to wonder why nothing really moves you anymore. It's not depression in the clinical sense, it's a spiritual fatigue. A quiet despair that whispers, is this all there is? That kind of despair isn't cured by more accomplishments or louder applause. It's only healed by alignment. Alignment with your values, with your passions, with the parts of you that long to be expressed and seen and useful. Without that alignment, you're always chasing something but never arriving. You're always doing but never being. And slowly that takes a toll, not just on your happiness, but on your identity. People often fear failure more than they fear purposelessness, but failure can be a teacher. It can point you toward a better path. It can refine you, but purposelessness teaches nothing. It simply erodes your sense of self over time. It convinces you that maybe you're not meant for anything special, that maybe life is just about survival, not significance. And once you begin to believe that, you start settling for less love, less growth, less beauty. You stop dreaming not because the dreams are impossible, but because you no longer feel worthy of them. That's the silent tragedy of a life without purpose. It doesn't just limit your actions, it limits your belief in what's possible. Purpose doesn't have to be something monumental or heroic. It can be simple, quiet, deeply personal. It can be raising children with intention, creating art that speaks to the soul, building a business that serves others, or even showing up in kindness wherever you go. What matters is not the scale, but the sincerity. When you are living in alignment with your purpose, your energy changes. Your decisions have clarity. Your actions have weight. You begin to attract people and opportunities that match your frequency because you're no longer scattered. You're rooted. And from that rootedness, fulfillment grows not because life becomes easier, but because it becomes meaningful. The truth is, we all carry something unique inside us, some insight, some gift, some perspective that the world needs. But without purpose, we keep that part of us hidden even from ourselves. We play roles that others expect. We follow paths that feel safe. We silence the voice inside that says, there's more. That silence eventually becomes unbearable. It creates restlessness, anxiety, a feeling that you're running out of time. And maybe you are. Because time is only as valuable as what you use it for. A long life without purpose is not success, it's slow decay. Purpose gives urgency to your days, not in the sense of pressure, but in the sense of presence. You become more aware, more alive, more connected to the now because you understand what you're here to do. Living without purpose also affects how you see yourself. You stop seeing yourself as a creator of change and start seeing yourself as a passive observer of your own story. You begin to think that life is something that happens to you rather than something you actively shape. That mindset breeds helplessness. And helplessness leads to apathy. It's a dangerous spiral, and once you're in it, climbing out feels like lifting a weight you can barely recognize, let alone carry. But purpose, even in its smallest form, gives you a grip. It gives you something to hold on to, something to aim at, something that tells you your life matters, your choices matter, and your story is still being written.